Since Jim Jones' trial, everything has been different. However, what you're going to discover will amazingly. Camron dropped a courtroom bombshell that might devastate everyone. Felt that Chrissy Lampkin's career was... Jim Jones was the subject of the trial. But who would have predicted Camron's reveal? Chrissy's secret that will rock the globe and reveal that secret, which was concealed from everyone's knowledge, is about to be revealed to the world at large. And Chrissy. This is the twist, that item. Has Jim sought to hide from everyone? Now, Jones may make it work to his benefit. If you heard correctly, this lawsuit isn't regarding Jim Jones. It's Chrissy's. What's next in this story? Revenge. Simply restricted to the courtroom. Overflowing into the streets in case you believe that you're just going through another trial. This time, the repercussions are dead wrong. It is impossible to visualize the courtroom. Doors open and everything comes to a halt. The trial of the year is the focus of attention. Jim, one that has the power to transform everything. Jones is being accused of things that could destroy his whole legacy. But in the middle of all of this pandemonium, Camron simply dropped a bombshell, and nobody believes me. You know, Camron, you saw it coming. It's always the one to voice his opinions, the one who incites controversy. However, what he disclosed about Chrissy, nobody expected Lampkin to do that. It was no longer simply about Jim Jones' courtroom that was intended to be everything about him and his criminal. Suddenly, accusations took center stage. For a far more significant controversy, the Camron was the one who created the drama. Chrissy, revealing information that no one knew there was a narrative that nobody had heard, has ventured to reveal thus far. Allow me to set the scenario for you. Everyone is watching this trial. We were on Jim, as everyone was aware. Legal issues pertaining to his business through the dirt. His name was dragged, and rumors that he is a part of a series of dubious activities already doubted his commitment to the crew's financial transactions, as well as the infamous picture of a Dipset that Camron and the others had been constructed from the ground up. But something occurred in the courtroom that anyone expected. Rather than simply concentrating on Jim's accusations, the court abruptly changed course when Camron made the most surprising move, determined to reveal Chrissy's secret. This was larger than any of us, Lamine, ever imagined. I now understand what you're pondering. What would be worse compared to the conflict between Jim? And that's where the scandal begins. Jim, whose real name is Crazy Chrissy Lannan, the longtime girlfriend of Jones and the reality TV personality, had been hiding something for years. So terrible and so discreet that Camron revealed all at one spectacular moment. In that, what precisely did Camron do in the courtroom? Disclosed that he set off a series of events. People would be shocked by that. Chrissy's concealed past, the worst aspects of her life, suddenly became public knowledge. When Camron said that she was engaged in some of her dubious activities, you might observe the astonishments from the viewers and the strain in the words. The accusation was evident in the courtroom. The woman who has supported Jim's side had been playing both for a long time. On both sides of the fence, Camron never simply cite the fact that she participated in dubious financial transactions. He revealed the shocking information that Chrissy had been covertly collaborating with some extremely powerful people, the type of, because Jim was completely ignorant of people who has the power to destroy everything, not only for Jim, but for everybody engaged. So why did Camron do it now? Choose to reveal this shocking information during the trial of Jim Jones. What was the rationale for this public disclosure? Was Camron is merely trying to draw attention to the crew's machines? Or was it there is a more profound goal let's go back a few years. Jim, Camron Jones, and the other members of the Dipset crew has been leading the way in the music scene, establishing patterns and producing memorable events, their ties and their devotion. It was something that they both felt. Everyone was impressed, but behind the surface had fissures, and those cracks were beginning to appear. Camron, who had a convoluted past connection with Jim, had been quiet. For years, he kept his private life private. remarks regarding the internal conflict inside Dipset. But currently, in the middle of during Jim's trial, he spotted an opportunity to reveal Chrissy's participation in something far more sinister. Something that might perhaps be connected to Jim's. It wasn't simply Chrissy's collapse. Private life. This secret is the one Camron revealed further details and dug deeper into criminal networks. Individuals who had previously pulling the strings in the background, and this information might destroy anything that the general population believes about Jim Jones's role in the music business. The devotion that his admirers once showed him was everything is up for grabs right now. And I'm curious how Chrissy felt about everything. Was she taken by surprise in this situation? On this strategy the entire time? Or are there other to this tale than anyone is prepared to acknowledge? But before we move forward, let us take a moment to stand back and examine the importance of this. Camron's shocking revelation, because this is no longer merely a trial. People, this is about secrets and betrayal. Loyalty that is being put to the test in the most widely used method possibly. We must pose the query. What exactly was Chrissy involved in? What was the extent of this conspiracy? And who else participated in these dubious? Was Jim Jones merely a pawn in a much more significant game that he never even anticipated? And this is where it becomes even increasingly intricate. What this implies for the relationship between Jim and Chrissy is this trial that will result in an irreversible separation that extends beyond their private lives but throughout their whole public image. If Jim's involvement in a controversy is Chrissy the one who drew him in? She is simply the victim of situations. All of these inquiries are rotating. And we haven't even not yet scraped the surface. But cling firmly, since we're going to get further into the consequences of Camron's courtroom confession. And believe me, it will get even more. Explosion when it exploded in the courtroom. Turmoil following Camron's startling epiphany that the entire globe witnessed in Chrissy Lampkin. The woman who disbelieved has been a rock of support for Jim Jones, stood at the heart of it for years. She didn't anticipate the storm. But it wasn't just regarding Camron's shock value, it was about the deeper links, the subterranean networks, and the covert plans that were coming to light. Let's dissect it, since this is Chrissy, where things become pretty messy, had been presented as the faithful companion. The woman supporting her partner during suddenly thick and thin were confronting grave charges. Camron wasn't simply making unfounded accusations that he was discussing genuine ties and hazardous individuals who could ruin a career with just one phone call. But Chrissy was still present. Allegedly connected to the accusation against them was straightforward. Had been covertly collaborating with people from Jim Jones's previous individuals with personal objectives and no issue with influencing circumstances to their benefit. These weren't casual friends, these were athletes who pulled strings while working in the shadows. In the realm of criminal activity, corruption, and dishonesty. And Chrissy had discovered herself caught up in them. What was even more astounding is the reality that Jim, according to Camron, he was unaware that Jim had kept in the dark regarding Chrissy's her interactions with these dubious individuals and the secrets she had kept him in the dark. Camron depicted a man who had previously been oblivious to loyalty and love. But now the reality of Chrissy's secret was emerging. For everyone, life had been an open book. However, Jim, please wait while we take a step. Why would Chrissy, a woman back here, had abruptly spent years by Jim's side, engage with those who could destroy him? The questions were growing, and their intensity was only growing. Was all of this a mishandled plan? Or was there a darker intent at, let's talk about the public now? Response to everything, because you must recognize when something similar occurs among the crowd. The press and even those who are closest to these celebrities begin to inquire about the fan following that has previously backed Chrissy and Jim, the admirers who believed they were the best, a couple of people who adhered to their every go on reality TV. All of a sudden, everything asterisk was available. What do you believe that what fans were saying after learning about Chrissy's purported role in this mess? And they felt angry, treacherous. And why wouldn't Jim had been their guy all along? A devoted rapper who remained true to himself, however, he was suddenly being pulled into something far larger than he had ever imagined. Might have fictitious sources related to the circumstance leaked, which a lot of fans accused Chrissy for taking advantage of Jim for her own gain. Several even went so far as to imply that Jim's name had been used by her and fame to go up the corporate ladder while acting covertly against him in the backdrop. You can picture the surprise and dissatisfaction among fans who previously loved the pair. Their question was, is this what does loyalty actually look like? And let's remember the headlines and the media were everywhere, spinning the story in all directions. Chrissy was quickly labeled by several sites. Others accused her of being a gold digger, acting as a puppet master, and dragging Jim's strings in the background to advance her personal agenda. But the truth is that nobody knowing what to think. The story was shifting hourly, and with every new when details emerged, it appeared as though the narrative was becoming increasingly complex. However, this is when things start to change. Since Camron didn't simply stop at making a more serious accusation against Chrissy, a lot deeper, he began to disclose some extremely unsettling facts on Jim Jones and things from his history that were unavoidable. Additionally, Camron asserted that Jim wasn't simply not knowing of Chrissy's activities. He was unaware of his own issues. According to Jim, had been acting badly toward Camron. Choices that have been muddled for years, unethical transactions, and social interactions who were using him as a piece in their game. These were individuals with personal agendas, reasons why those who were unconcerned about Jim but was interested in using him to advance their personal goals in a daring move. Camron names that you discarded. Significant names that you didn't anticipate hearing in the same Jim Jones's sentence. These were the types of names that weren't just represent criminal activity but poor businesses that functioned covertly out of the spotlight. And Jim's, it has nothing to do with these figures. It was more than just professional, it was personal. Camron claimed that Jim had been surrounded by individuals who had previously giving him false information and guiding him in a route that was sure to generate problems, difficulties that, in the end, were correct right outside his door. And you know what's even more startling? Camron didn't merely speak, discussing these links in general terms. No, he provided detailed information on how much Jim actually got involved. It was evident to him that Jim had been engaged in these pursuits for years. He didn't see it, though, whether it was denial of, ignorance, or outright disdain for the repercussions. Jim was currently suffering the consequences of his own decisions that were connected to the individuals themselves. Chrissy had been working covertly with take a moment to process it. It's one item to get sucked into something that you didn't realize that it was another completely when you understand that those who are closest to you, those who the people in charge were the ones most trusted. You're in this mess. And Camron was precisely that, hinting that he was saying Chrissy's treachery was more than simply a personal one. Jim was the one, and it was business, who was caught up after being dazzled by love, in a game where he was unaware he was playing. But the worst part is that there was more at risk than anyone could thought of as the drama in the courtroom as time went on. It became evident that this was more than simply a single person's error. This concerned the collapse of an entire empire. Down Jim's career wasn't the only one on the line. That was all that they had constructed. All of the things they had fought for were presently at risk while the drama played out in the courtroom. It was obvious what was at risk in this situation was much more than a personal scandal. It was more than just Jim Jones's public image, reputation being damaged, or Chrissy Lannan being made public for her covert activities. Was about the whole empire that they established being ripped apart. The fan base was in disarray. Industry was observing, and the consequences were only beginning to materialize. It's a light, and this is everyone's truth. Avoiding this controversy wasn't merely a ticking time bomb, was my personal issue. For their professions, for individuals who believed this would blow over my head. Once more, as soon as Camron revealed that the Globe wasn't merely seeing the dirty laundry of a couple is being broadcast, was witnessing the breakdown of a whole. Jim Jones was more than just a rapper, was a hip leader and cultural icon, top world, and now he found himself in the center of a terrible legal situation that legal action was unavoidable in every situation. As soon as Cameron's remarks were published, lawyers were on high alert for accusations. As if they weren't merely gossip, Jim's past was actionable. Relationships with the dubious individuals he'd supposedly had something to do with the funds. Trials and the possibility of criminal liability was beginning to show. And the government, who could forget it? Investigations that started to circulate surrounding the crime. Police enforcement had already paid close attention to Jim's earlier associations, particularly following those shocking disclosures from Camron residents around the. According to an inquiry, federal agents were investigating finances, racketeering, money laundering, and maybe even more grave criminal activities. So what did Jim take out from this? And Chrissy? The most evident outcome, Jim and the possible legal disputes in Chrissy can be dealing with severe lawful consequences. And we're discussing years behind bars if things didn't work out, if Jim was directly involved or not in unlawful activity. His affiliation with the incorrect individuals and his inability to taking action on the warning indicators might suffice in order to bring him down, but something far more significant was involved. This public criticism the sector had already began to turn against them for a long time. Co-conspirators were pulling away. Barriers were being created by labels and the rumors were circulating on the streets, but nobody desired to be connected to a sinking ship. And the consequences of this trial were simply, let's start by discussing the fallout. From the scandal, we are discussing networks, businesses, and brands that had joined forces with Chrissy and Jim over the years, who now needed to ask the awkward query, do we keep helping these folks when their whole reputations are at stake? For a character such as Jim Jones, who had hitherto been invincible of hip-hop, the harsh reality struck. Sponsor and partner calls began arriving. Many were retreating from their affiliations, uncertain about the way, according to public opinion. The cascading effect was anticipated to have a significant impact. In actuality, there were whispers that Jim on the verge of losing several deals, including endorsements and partnerships with several of the most well-known names in the industry. The strain was increasing, and everyone in his vicinity sensed it. And Chrissy, her circumstances weren't very good. Better yet, she had already been branded by the media. The ultimate antagonist during the years of support and allegiance to Jim were now being eclipsed by her purported hidden life. And the fans weren't the only ones who turned. Industry insiders were against her, beginning to doubt her devotion and sincere motives that the public didn't accept the romantic tale. Followers began to accuse her of using Jim to further her own agenda, personal benefit of utilizing their connection as a springboard for her own profession. It was an unfortunate turn of events. The very those who had previously commended her for her strength now perceived her as a cunning eye, saw someone who had been playing a game for many years. Let's not even discuss. Began working on Camron as soon as he opened his mouth. The drama simply intensified to reaching new heights in the hip-hop scene. Fans and the media were all waiting. Camron is well known for his every word. Savage words and unrestrained, he wasn't letting his attitude get in the way. Just letting Chrissy see that he was crying, taking down all Jim had constructed. The question was, what was Camron actually doing? Was he attempting to exact revenge or shield Jim from a reality that he was also unable to perceive? Let's examine the potential temporary legal repercussions if Chrissy has been with the wrong people, wrong for which she might be charged racketeering, conspiracy, fraud, and even these weren't only small charges, were grave offenses that might result in she spent years in prison for Jim. The circumstances were more complex than he could be subject to indirect charges because of his connections with well-known. The criminals we are discussing are caught up in a network of illicit operations, something he might not have even been aware of, however. The law isn't always concerned with that. Ignorance is not a justification, and Jim had to deal with the terrible reality. What about public relations? Nightmare, it was obvious Jim wasn't. He was once an untouchable figure. His formerly devoted followers were wondering all of the things the rapper, who was now a hero to many, had to face the consequences of manipulation through betrayal and secrets. But this is the most important query. Is it possible for them to return from this? Is there any chance that Jim and Chrissy will rebuild their relationships, their careers, and their lives following all that has been revealed? Or is this the conclusion of an era? One thing is certain. This trial controversy and the ensuing disclosures with it, history will be recalled. Jim Jones' name will always be associated with among the most startling tales in here is the story of hip-hop history. Pop history. The drama in the courtroom is still ongoing, continuing the ongoing legal disputes, and it is up to the fans to pick up the pieces. Will Chrissy Lampkin and Jim Jones ever? Only time will tell if you recover from this. However, for the time being, we have the following: the revelation of the truth, and there is no way to go back. And you have the startling reality of Jim Jones and the collapsing empire of Chrissy Lynn. But this raises the question of what lies ahead for them. Is this the end, or can they survive? Of their profession as it currently exists, will the legal repercussions are more severe than the controversy in general, and the majority of, crucially, how widespread will this fallout be? Indeed, this is a tale that's continuing. You don't want to miss it as it unfolds. On what occurs next, please leave a comment below. In your opinion, was this a calculated move? Camron's action to ruin Jim's career, or does this have more to it than meets the eye? Hey, we would want to know what you think about this enormous. Don't forget to like this video. Scandal. If these revelations have startled you, and distribute it to your friends in order to create sure that everyone is aware of the. Be sure to subscribe to remain up to date. Keeping abreast with all breaking news as we keep finding more explosive narratives such as this one, energize alerts to ensure you don't miss a fantastic moment. This is simply the starting. We have a lot more to reveal. Thank you for viewing, and see you later. You should keep an eye out because in the way the reality in the realm of celebrity drama is, action and fiction is always stranger.